Okay, we are now at item 7C, strategic planning process. Lin Bob McKenvey, I can't say it.
So, Mr. DeLucia, I'd like to introduce our two facilitators of an incredibly important process that we're about to embark on, a strategic planning from the district, or for the district. Both Lin and Bob are extremely experienced, I hate to even say this, retired superintendents who have done an exceptional job.
It's really good.
Done an exceptional job leading their own districts and are now working through the University of Rochester, helping districts strategically plan across the area. So we're thrilled to have Bob and Lin with us tonight, and they're going to give a bit of an overview of the process that we're going to be embarking as a school community, both towards the end of this summer as well through the fall and potentially the winter. So really appreciative on short notice that they could be here. They're in the middle of running at least, how many 4 strategic plans at this point. And so I know they're very busy, but thrilled to have them. So I'll turn it over to Lin and Bob.
Thank you so much. We're very thrilled to be here and be back with all of you. A couple summers ago, we spent a few evenings together. But as Tim said, for the person that doesn't know me, I'm Lin and I'm part of the University of Rochester Warner team. I have a variety of roles with Warner School. I'm a leadership coach. I am an associate professor in their Ed Leadership program, and I'm the lead researcher in the strategic planning process. And I use the word researcher cautiously because I think when people hear researcher, they go to that scientific mindset. And yes, the work that we do is certainly based in best practice research. But both Bob and I and our colleague Julie Winston, who also shares the spotlight of the team membership, we're public school educators at heart. We believe in public school. We believe in the power of a public school. I spent all 40 years of my career in the Canandaigua City School District, retiring a few years ago now as their superintendent of schools. So the work that we come to you with is critically important, and we believe in it so strongly and could stand up here and tell you stories of when our districts or other districts we've worked with have been part of the strategic planning process and when they haven't been. And so, again, just thank you so much. Truly, it is a privilege for us to be chosen and to be a part of the work that we're going to do with your district.
So I would once again say it's a pleasure to be back with all of you. Elizabeth, it's a pleasure to meet you. As Tim and Lin said, my name is Bob McKenvey. And so for probably 4 or 5 years, I've had a role with the University of Rochester as a leadership coach, where I serve as a coach to superintendents and principals in the region. And I'm also fortunate to be part of the strategic planning team with Lin and Julie. And so that's given us a great opportunity to work with districts and boards such as yourself to lead them forward in the really, really important work. So it's a pleasure to be back with all of you. It seems like it was yesterday, but it was, let me just tell you, you gotta thank you, and I'm gonna give you the biggest compliment you can get for leading your district through this year and leading them out of the pandemic, because we're not there yet. And so that becomes really important. So I'm gonna give you a compliment for that and for the work that you're gonna take on as you get into this school year. So it's really, really important. So we're going to give you an overview of what we're doing. We're certainly going to be open to questions, but that work's going to commence later this summer. So as you're looking at the slide there, I would just tell you that strategic planning creates a focus and an emphasis on the most important work of the district. And so once this starts and once you have a plan in place, you're going to hear that continually: strategic plan, strategic plan, strategic plan, goals, initiatives. So the other piece that's very important, it allows the entire school community to know the important work. And boy, did we learn a lot about school community during COVID. And so that school community encompasses the whole community. We're all partners in this process more than ever before. And it maintains something that you people hold very dearly to, a culture of excellence. But it also embraces continuous improvement. And I said it last year when I was with you, you want to be great at one thing, getting better. And so if you create that culture and maintain that culture, you're always looking to improve on what you're doing. It's best practices.
So how are we different? How is the Warner approach different than what other people might be out there doing? It's the same basic process, but we make a district do the hard work. So the Warner team will come in and work with the district. We're going to collect the data. We do that upfront work for you. We collect the data. In fact, I'm going to be here in 2 weeks working with Dr. Lay before she leaves, looking at your records, digging into student achievement. And yes, we know this year's going to be different because of the way the state testing was, but digging into what happens in your buildings for kids to push them forward. We're going to talk to all of the stakeholders who are willing to talk to us. We've created a schedule, and over 2 full days and 2 half days, we're going to be in this district with a whole team, talking with groups of people, learning how they feel about the district. So yes, every process gathers that data, but what's different for us is we don't do the hard work. We don't analyze that data. We prepare it for you in a very comprehensive report. And members of your planning council, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, will actually do the work of looking at that report. And sometimes we scare them because it's pretty close to a 200-page report, that over the days we work with them, we look at the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities and the threats of the district based on the data that we have gathered. And then you do the analysis and you create the plan based on what you learn by reading that report. Many other folks who do strategic planning do that analysis for you and hand you the plan based on their ideas of what is in the best interest of a district. We don't believe that makes any sense. We believe that stakeholders have to have a part of the process, and those stakeholders are the people who work in this district in every role, but it's also the Board of Education, and it's also the community. We want the community to be part of this, to understand the process, and then to be part of developing and living with this plan. That's how the Warner approach is really different.
So let me talk a little bit about what Lynn just said. You're going to hear a word later on, ownership. And so once again, we're going to ask your planning council to create the strategic plan, but it's so that there's district ownership in the work that's being done. So Lynn talked about in advance, we'll prepare a lot of information in a report. And what you're seeing on the screen there is that report will contain quantitative data and qualitative data. And so more than half of that report is going to be that quantitative data, personalized data that you want everyone to look at to say, we want to dig in and say, let's take a look at this. We're going to compare it to a few places. We're going to potentially look at some benchmark places. How do you measure up against some of those? You might look at things such as course offerings, enrollment trends, things like that in the quantitative piece. But we'll also look at some benchmark pieces. And then the qualitative piece is when Lynn said, we come into district and we talk to as many people as we can. And I will tell you, in advance of doing this, I think this will be the district where we get to talk to the most people about a district than we've ever done before. Because in our advanced conversations with Dr. Terranova, we're going to be able to be set up on those opening days when people come back to be able to talk to as many people as possible. And that's important so that this will be reflective of what everybody thinks and everybody knows about this district. And so that becomes a really important part of our work moving forward. So let me show you the next slide. And this is example. I know it's small print, but this is example of what some of that quantitative data will look like. And we also personalize it. We'll say, what's really important to you? Knowing that state assessments and Regents results might look a little different the past 2 years. But you know what? As everyone comes back to school here, we're going to get back into a data-driven process that says, how do we move forward? How do we get better? So we will be looking at student achievement data. Maybe we'll look at some of your student achievement data from this past year that's more personalized, that it's maybe not state data, to see how kids are doing. And so we'll ask them to analyze that as well.
So there's a two-part qualitative part to this, and the first part is what I've already mentioned. We will be on site. There are 6 of us who will be on site for 1 full day and 2 half days. I will then be here for an additional full day. And we are going to talk in small groups and in individual interviews with all of the stakeholders. We have a schedule. I've developed a schedule. We have very, very full days, but I was given the number of staff, and I was able to then assign, and I'll be working with building principals and directors to make certain that everybody during those days has an opportunity to meet in these small groups with us. We follow a fairly prescribed process. We talk about strengths, we talk about weaknesses. We ask these folks who are participating to rate the district in a variety of ways, and we'll work with Dr. Terranova to make certain that our probing questions get to what is important to you, as Bob said. The other piece of this is a community survey. We will work to create a community survey. It typically takes about 12-ish minutes to complete. And again, we'll make certain that the questions we ask your community, and again, it's on that scale of do you agree, disagree, and the range. And we make certain that we ask the questions that are important to you. What is it that you want to know? What is it that you are not sure of? And that can be provided. We'll have a link that'll go out. We give the community typically 2 weeks to complete that, and then we put all of that data together. We've also found that it's important for some members of the community to have paper copies available, and then we just collate all of that by hand. It's not a problem whatsoever. So the Planning Council. The Planning Council will represent the district. There will be stakeholders on this council. There will be 1 or 2 Board of Education members. There will be administrators, Dr. Terranova, of course. There will be parents. We like at least 4 students. There will be members of the teaching staff, members of the support staff. And we will meet for 4 full days with this stakeholder group. They are going to, as I said, roll up their sleeves and get dirty in the work of analyzing that report. They're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses. What is happening in this district right now? And then they're also going to look at the opportunities and threats. What's our future? What are those external factors that we need to avoid or we need to take advantage of? And from that, and it's a very lengthy process of voting and charting and doing all kinds of work with this Planning Council, we identify the strategic initiatives that this district will undertake over the next 5 years. And what's really important around this is that this plan has to be a living, breathing document. What we create this fall needs to be looked at continually by the Board of Education, by the leadership team, by Dr. Terranova. We're going to help provide you with metrics to take a look at that. And it needs to change if it needs to change. It can't be something that is stuck on a desk. It isn't this nice, we just created a strategic plan. It has to be the work of this district. And every decision and everything falls under the work of this strategic plan.
So just to give you a little sense on what it might look like when we're together on those 4 days. We just finished one in a similar sized district, and it's 4 to 6 table groups. And at a table group, maybe a parent, a student, a teacher, the superintendent, and a board member, and everyone has an equal part. And to watch them going through different parts of the report and having the student weigh in on what they think this really means and having the others say, that's what it looks like. So it's a very, very involved process, and it has representation from all the stakeholder groups. So I think you can embrace that part of it. So this slide here, if someone was to come in or someone go to your website and say, let's take a look at the vision and the mission of this district. I want to learn about what this district's all about. And that becomes the big part of the umbrella, or the 20,000-foot view. Underneath, what becomes really important are the areas of focus, the initiative and the goal, the initiatives and the goals, and that's what's created in the strategic plan. And so that moving forward, everybody's pulling in the same direction because you have ownership and agreement on the most important work of the district. So once again, that visual, hopefully you can keep that in your mind, because those three things under vision and mission become very, very important. And when they're not there, things get fragmented. So you're at the point, I'm listening to this board meeting tonight, you're talking about students, you're talking about instruction, you're talking about summer programs, and start to think about the areas of focus, the initiatives and the goals, and how things come together.
So the final product is a 5-year plan. One of the hardest pieces of creating this plan is that the different teams, writing teams from the Planning Council, want their work to be the first year. Everything's going to be done in the first year. And we end up taking their plans and their ideas, and because we've been at this for a while, putting that in some sense of chronological order, because quite frankly, you can't do all the work in the first year. So we put that in order, and then we come back and we work with Tim and a team that he creates, and we create a 1-year management plan. I like to call that the roll up your sleeves and get dirty work of the district. So we have taken this 5-year plan that's in chronological order, and we've taken all of the year 1 initiatives, all of the work of the next school year, and we create the objective and the goals and all of the action steps. How are we going to accomplish each one of those initiatives? That management plan becomes hefty, and that management plan becomes the conversation that everyone needs to have. In our experience working as superintendents, as administrators in our districts, and now as we've been around this area doing strategic planning a lot, what we have seen is the very most critical piece to the success of a strategic plan is making certain that all stakeholders have ownership, have buy-in, and know the plan. Yes, it is the responsibility. The board has a key role in this. Leadership has a key role in this. But it is critical that your teachers know where you're headed. It's critical that your transportation department knows where you're headed. It is critical that anybody that has a shop on Main Street understands what's important to the school district. And that's what a strategic plan does. It is publicized. It is the conversation of board meetings. My recommendation as we work with Dr. Terranova through this is that all presentations that you have that are instructional are focused on the work of this plan. You get all kinds of folks to come and present because it all funnels into the work of the plan. And if something comes up and it's not in the plan, then it becomes a conversation. Should it be in the plan, or does it really not have a place in the plan? Every decision is made on this. I made budgetary decisions based on this. Somebody would come to me, want a little money, well, tell me where that fits into the strategic plan. Oh, all right, I understand that. Nope, doesn't fit anywhere, then we have to have a conversation. This strategic plan should lead the leadership to making all decisions based on it.
So let's talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities, and I think Lynn has used the word stakeholders and ownership. And so I'm going to take some things from these slides moving forward, but we're certainly hopeful one or two of you are on that planning council representing the Board of Education. And once you're there, you realize you're working with a planning council. You're not the board, and they're not the teachers, and there's not this. You have a report to work towards. But once again, as Lynn just said, your board meetings start to take on a different focus if this becomes the most important work of the district. And so those presentations, I can vividly remember, and I might have said this last summer, when one of my board members said to me, gee, did the administrators all practice their report? Because it all sounded like it was in sync. I'm like, no, we don't have time for that. But the fact of the matter is they were all focused on the most important work of the district at each of the buildings. So once again, you have the right to ask questions. You might do a formal update at mid-year and year-end, but other times you will have updates as part of your superintendent's report or principal's report. So you have the right to have that become part of it. Let me try to move on here. So the work of the superintendent obviously must publicize this plan, must be the face and the voice of the organization, but also needs to let that out there. Also, make sure people are well aware. Go speak to stakeholder groups, whether it's faculty meetings in the building or maybe it's a Rotary meeting. whatever that may be. But give you the updates, and then be able to answer questions. And not just from his vantage point, but from the vantage point of other people in the district as well. So additional roles and responsibilities. So leadership team, and as Lynn said, she's going to be here Tuesday to share some information with the leadership team on what their roles and responsibilities are related to this. They won't all be on the planning council, but they need to be represented on the planning council as well. So once again, they become really important members of this process. And you could see on the screen some of their roles and responsibilities there. Did I miss one? Okay. So with that, we are certainly open to questions. I know we kind of jumped around. Once this starts and you start hearing about it, I think it will fall into place very nicely for you. And once again, I applaud your efforts for taking this on. I think it's going to be a very strong statement to your entire school community moving forward and coming out of COVID and welcoming everyone back to school, that we're now going to be focused on the most important work of the district.
You will have a plan in your hands by December 31st. That's my goal, is to have that draft plan presented to you, well, to Dr. Terranova, and then certainly it becomes your plan at that point, and we'll help support it in any way possible, but the plan will be yours.
Okay, board members, questions? Anyone? Karen?
I just wanted to see if you can send this PDF to Maureen so that we can share with the whole board, because we're missing 2 members.
She has it already.
Okay.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you.
And the other piece that we didn't lug is copies of plans that I think it's probably the last 10 that we have done. And as we get into the process, we can certainly bring that if it's an interest to see what that final product looks like for other districts. Just so I know when, we stand up here and spew about what strategic planning is, it's hard to envision what that final product is, but it will be rich, it will be deep. We can promise you that.
The only thing I would say when you go to start looking at some of what the other districts did, you have to have this mindset. That planning council came up with those goals, initiatives, and action plans. Each planning council analyzed reports differently that led them to what those areas are. So it's not like a template that we use that come up with these things. It's the planning council, it's personalized.
Elizabeth?
Bob and Lynn, when you mentioned that there'd be paper copies available for the community members, in past practice with other districts, how do you disseminate those surveys? Just out of curiosity.
Most of the time it is on the website. We ask principals to put out in whatever means they do, and teachers, that there will be a survey for parents to take. And then it's on the website, quick link, and then it comes right back to us. But we also indicate that there would be paper copies. The other thing that we are also very aware of is the language, what should the language be? We've translated into several different ones, and we will work with the district to do that as well.
Great, thank you.
We've done main offices, we've put on the website where you can get it, and if you think there's a place in the community that's a good place to put it, that certainly would be up to you people as a district for those paper copies.
One of the things we did with paper copies 2 years ago, a district that was a smaller district wanted to make certain, and wasn't certain that everyone had access. It was before we probably had that data, as you've all just had to acquire in the last year. So we had a team that was at every holiday concert and asked parents to come 15 minutes early and handed it out, and you know how many people come to holiday concerts. They had one of the largest responses of any district, certainly of their size, but of larger districts too. We're creative. We'll do it in any way that you guys would like us to.
I think you'll get a great response off Parent Square that many other districts use, and it's going to lead them right to a link that takes them to a Google form, so they can do it on their phone.
Are you doing parent surveys of parents of current students? And has there been if so, is there a consideration of alumni?
It's the whole community.
The whole community.
So the very first question is an identifier. So are you a parent of a student in, and we list the buildings, a graduate, are you an alumni,
Great.
So it's
Thank
everybody.
you.
So that, that is, to follow up, that is the concern or the worry is, parents that are associated with the district get the word, probably more than they want sometimes. So how do we make certain that your entire community does? So we can work with Dr. Terranova. And from what I gather, you know, the whole community does tie into your board meetings and so forth. So we'll make certain that the community knows.
What's very interesting related to that, we're in a district next week for 3 days doing strategic planning. They did a survey prior to COVID, then got put on hold, and we're finally in there. We did a post-COVID survey, and we're able to tease out how many are not connected to the district. So they got it out, and I don't know what they're using, but they got it out to not only parents, but they got it to community members.
Any other questions? I do have a couple.
Sure.
If everyone is finished. Yeah, my first question was, what's the planning council? And I think I heard your answer. I'm gonna say it back to you and see if I missed anything.
Okay.
You said stakeholders, Board of Ed members, couple, administration, parents, teachers, support staff, students. Did I miss anything?
Nope, you didn't.
Okay. And then my other question is, how does this align with or replace superintendent's goals or the Board of Ed goals?
I believe year one, it may not replace, but it will start to align. And I say year one because it's having a strategic plan, something that guides the district as deeply as this should, is new. It's new to everybody. It'll be new to everyone in the district. So I can tell you from my experience as a superintendent that year one, it didn't replace my goals and it didn't replace my board goals, but it started to inform them. By year two, I felt like everyone in the district was in that rowboat with me, facing the same way. And what that meant to me is that my school improvement teams in each of the buildings used the strategic plan to create their goals. The Board of Education looked at the strategic plan, created their goals, and my goals were always based off of that. Principals, administrators, all of their goals were based on that because that was the work of the district. And by the middle of that year, everything was very well aligned.
Okay, great.
Tim,
Maybe not the first year.
Tim, my experience was exactly the same as Lynn's. My superintendent goals were, let's say, the three strategic plan goals, and if we had a conversation maybe about one other, then we would add one other as a superintendent goal. But that way, there was a focus, and everyone was pulling in the same direction.
Great, okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, well, thank you, too.
Excellent. We're anxious to
Appreciate
work
it.
with you. Thank you so much for giving us the
Good
opportunity.
to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much, Bob and Lynn.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.